The silver grass whispers at your ankles, curling around your steps like it knows secrets and doesn't particularly feel like sharing them. Each blade gleams faintly in the morning sun, as if polished by memory itself. The webbed footprints stretch before you, unwavering, deliberate. You begin to wonder, do geese walk with purpose? This one clearly did. The hill ahead rises like a question mark. Not steep, but slightly smug in its roundness. The wind nudges you up its slope, and the earth beneath your feet feels soft, spongy, as though stuffed with discarded metaphors and forgotten sandals. At the top, you find a chair. Not a throne, not a sacred stool, just a chair. Wooden, worn, and slightly wobbly. Someone once carved a goose into the backrest, but the beak is chipped and the eyes are unusually intense. You stare at it. It stares back. Legend says Milagros sat here once a week, watching the valley and narrating what he saw in verse. Sometimes he'd speak in hexameter, other times in limericks. Once, supposedly, he described an entire thunderstorm using only bakery metaphors. One obscure cultural note. For a brief season in Arcadian history, people believed that chairs placed on hills gave clearer visions of the divine. A traveling merchant sold dozens of elevation-enhanced prophecy seats before disappearing mysteriously into a well. His slogan, "Why pray standing?" You sit in the chair, nothing happens. Then, softly, the wind begins to echo phrases, not quite words, but syllables that feel suspiciously like tired poetry. Double quotes. Beneath the sun, I found my beak. You try to respond. Your mouth opens. Double quotes. I flew with feet. I spoke with leak. A pause. Okay, you mutter. Oh, tie, you mutter. La, I flew with feet. I spoke with leak. A pause. Okay, you mutter. Maybe rhyming isn't for everyone. Scholars still debate whether Milagros invented this poetic style or merely discovered it mid-Goose crisis. Some believe it was a divine punishment. Others suspect it was a divine prank gone far too long. From the hilltop, the whole valley spreads before you. The village, a few dots of white and clay. The shrine, a tiny glint among the trees. The pond, dark and rippling with memory. And there, on the edge of a distant path, you see it. A figure. Walking. No one around. No caravan. No animals. Just one tall, solitary figure, draped in what looks like feathers and faded cloth, holding a staff shaped suspiciously like a shepherd's crook. Or possibly a novelty breadstick. You blink. He's gone. Naturally. You descend the hill quietly, like you don't want to wake it. The grass no longer whispers, it exhales. A warm breeze carries the scent of honey and olive pits, the kind of air that makes even regrets feel nostalgic. You pass through a grove of almond trees where the king regrets feel nostalgic. You pass through a grove of almond trees where the shadows stretch longer than they should. A woman sits beneath one, shelling nuts and humming something very old. She doesn't look up as you approach, but says, "He passed by an hour ago, told me I should stop singing in minor keys." You sit across from her. The shells pile up like thoughts on a sleepy afternoon. "He looked better," she continues, cracking another almond. "Less feathery, a little taller. Still smelled faintly of pondweed. You ask if he said where he was going. She shrugs. Said something about returning. A borrowed sky. Naturally, you continue along the path, which now curls through low hills dotted with ancient stone standing ones, squatting ones, some suspiciously shaped like hunched old philosophers. This is the meadow of thoughts that didn't stick doddits, where old ideas came to die. Philosophers, bards, and overly confident teenagers would walk here and declare their most half-baked theories to the wind. Most were ignored. Some were gently mocked by goats. A few became epics by accident. An inscription on a particularly squat stone reads, "What if time is just Zeus walking backwards?" Another, older one says, "If I love you like a goose loves bread, is that enough?" You walk among these stones, feeling the strange weight of all these unfinished notions. One feather drifts from above, spirals downward, and lands on your shoulder like punctuation. You begin to hear the honk again, not distant this time. Closer, clearer. You round a bend in the path. There he is. MELEAGROS. Not fully man, not fully bird, just him. A tall figure in a ragged robe feathered along the seams. His face is human, but his eyes reflect light like a pond does, soft, unbothered, ancient. He stands next to a fig tree, plucking one of its fruits with the kingus of the fig, plucking one of its fruits with the klang, laden its fruits with the kai. Slow precision of someone who's learned the hard way not to rush sweetness. He sees you. Smiles. Then says, "You're earlier than I expected. Most don't make it past the theater." You try to respond, but words scatter. He waves a hand, forgiving. Your silence. "I suppose you came for wisdom," he says. Or sleep. They're cousins, really. He sits beneath the tree and pats the ground next to him. You sit. For a while. There's only wind and fig chewing. Then he speaks again. Being a goose wasn't the punishment. It was the clarity. You tilt your head. I spent my life talking, composing, arguing with the gods. And only as a bird, chased, ignored, mildly feared, did I learn how to listen. He chuckles. And the bread. The bread was not bad. You want to ask what happened to him, why Hermes chose him, why the transformation happened, how it felt. But the questions feel clumsy in your throat. So you just sit. And Meligros tells a story about a river that once flowed backward for a week because a nymph was in a mood. You both laugh softly. He hums a tune that sounds a bit like wind passing through reeds. You hum along. It feels less like an ending, more like remembering something you forgot to begin. The sun begins to set again, and somewhere in the distance, gentle, sleepy hunk. You sit with Meligros beneath the fig tree as twilight seeps in like a soft ink, painting the world in lavender and hushed gold. The tree above you creaks gently with the breeze, as if it too is leaning in to listen. Meligros plucks another fig, splits it open, and offers you half with the solemnity of a sacred rite. "It's sweeter in the dark," he murmurs. Something about how the sugars sneak out when no one's watching. You bite into it. He's not wrong. It tastes like dusk, like memories you never had, and like you should probably be lying down somewhere soft. Across from you, Meligros hums again low, uncertain, tuneless. His hands are calloused, his robe patched with everything. From linen to, is that papyrus? You're not sure. One sleeve is unmistakably made from old theater curtain. Another appears to be stitched from birdseed sacks, and somehow it suits him. You want to know how it started? He says. You nod. Of course you do. He leans back, balancing the fig stem on one knee like it's a tiny scepter. Well, it began, depending on who you ask, when I wrote a play called Hermes and the Misunderstood Sandal. It was meant to be funny, playful, a light jab. He pauses. I performed it once, in Delphi. Another pause. It did not go well. He smiles, dry and feathered. Turns out gods don't enjoy satire, especially gods with access to transformation-based revenge. You ask if he regrets it. Oh, yes, he replies, but not for the reason you think. He taps the ground with a fig stem. People think. The worst part was losing my form. No, it was losing my audience. Honking isn't conversational. He leans closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Do you know how hard it is to stage a tragedy with webbed feet? I played all the roles. I was my own chorus. The final scene involved waddling off a stump. You try not to laugh. He doesn't mind when you fail. He sighs and leans back again. Eventually, I stopped fighting it, ate crumbs, took naps in the poos. Sun followed boats, and one day I realized it wasn't punishment. You raise an eyebrow. It was rehearsal. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the leaves above. A single feather-long ray and curled at the tip floats down between. You both. Neither of you moves to catch it. An obscure tradition is said to have sprung from Meleagros's feather musings. In one coastal town, brides would carry goose feathers in their shoes on their wedding day, not for luck, but to remind them that nothing is ever entirely graceful. You ask what happened after the transformation ended, after Hermes turned him back. Which time? He replies, you blink. There were 4. Historians still debate whether this was metaphor, exaggeration, or a divine paperwork error. I kept going back, he explains. Sometimes by accident, sometimes because I missed it. He stands, slowly brushing fig leaves from his robe. You're close now, he says. The story ends soon. You ask where. He nods to the west, toward a crooked grove of cypress trees hunched like elderly philosophers gossiping in the wind. Follow the crooked trees. Listen for the echoes. If you hear honking, you're almost there. If you hear applause, you're lost. He grins. Then begins to walk away, slowly, until the shadows stretch over him like a second robe, and then nothing, except a honk. Somewhere behind you this time.